post twice a week, Mondays and Fridays, or whenever I can post. So if you're interested in true crime content, if you're interested in me reading a true crime book to you in a whisper format, you've came to the right place. Don't forget to subscribe. Warning, this video may contain details of graphic content. This channel is for mature audiences only. Some viewers might find this disturbing. 15-year-old Sally Jenny had never had a boyfriend before she met 22-year-old Richard Challen. Barely old enough to call herself an adult, Sally quickly fell in love with the older boy. Sally grew up in the 1960s in Surrey, England, just southwest of London. Her four older brothers were all in their teens when she was born, and her father died when she was 6, leaving her to be raised by her mother. Sally's mother didn't believe in higher education for girls and thought it was good that she had met a man at such a young age. Richard Challen was outgoing, energetic, and had a healthy sense of humor. As a boy, his passion for fast cars had gained him a reputation as a patrol head. That obsession with automobiles led him to buy older cars, fix them up, and sell them for a profit. It wasn't long before he had opened his own garage, selling his cars and making a good living. From the early years, Sally was committed to their relationship and would stop by his apartment after school to cook and clean for him. Richard, however, wasn't as committed and was still very much interested in other girls, often dating other women behind her back. When Sally became pregnant at 17 y'all, so she was 15 and she married a 22-year-old man and got pregnant at 17. I guess that was normal back in the day. Richard wasn't ready to settle down and told her, quote, "It could be anybody's." Devastated at his response, Sally asked her older brothers to take her to London for a late-term abortion. Later, Sally became suspicious that Richard was seeing another woman. When she questioned him about it, Richard displayed his anger by pulling her down a flight of stairs and throwing her out of the front door of his flat. From that point on, Sally thought twice about grappling with him in similar situations. Despite everything, Sally happily stayed with Richard. He was the only man she had ever loved or even dated. In June 1979, after 10 years of dating, Sally and Richard were married, but not before Richard made her sign a prenuptial agreement. Richard worked long hours at his car dealership, and before long they had 2 boys and moved into a large, beautiful home in the upscale area of Claygate, Surrey. From the outside, they seemed to be a normal, happy family. The couple often hosted dinner parties with other wealthy couples in the area. Richard was known for his sport cars, his favorite being his Ferrari Berlinetti. Sally was known for her heavy drinking, chain smoking, and her excessive chatting. She loved to talk and gossip. However, Sally's faults wore on Richard, and he began to berate and criticize her in front of their friends. Richard liked to brag to his friends about how he would skirt the law. In 1991, he outran the police, chasing him in cars in a helicopter while racing his motorcycle. Later in 2006, he crashed his beloved Ferrari on a racetrack in Belgium. In an attempt to collect insurance money for the loss, he shipped the car back to the United Kingdom and made made up a story about getting hit by a semi-truck. His plan didn't work though, and resulted in a conviction of fraud and a 1-year suspended sentence. In addition to the public berating of Sally, friends and family really started to take notice that there were problems when Richard sent out Christmas cards. Rather than a normal family photo on the front of the cards, Richard arranged a photo shoot of himself with 2 nude women on the hood of his Ferrari. A similar Christmas card came the following year. As their 2 boys grew into their teen years, Sally was the center of the family. Richard was either working long hours at the car dealership or off on a vacation with friends and family. The boys recalled Richard constantly ridiculing their mother, calling her thunder thighs. Or when someone complimented her looks, his standard reply was, quote, "You haven't seen her naked." On a trip to Los Angeles to visit one of Richard's oldest friends, the friend gave Sally a goodnight hug and kiss, just as he had done for years. Richard didn't take kindly to it. That night he inappropriately touched her and never spoke to the friend again. Dinner would often be a point of contention. Had she cooked the right thing? Was it cooked properly? When Richard came home from work in the evening, the atmosphere at the family home changed. Everyone was on edge. Richard made rules for the household. Whether he was there or not, the television was not to be used if he wasn't in the house. The same went for the telephones. Richard and Sally's sex life consisted of whatever he wanted at the time. She didn't have a say in the matter. He would often tell her to go upstairs and, quote, get ready for him, which meant she needed to wash herself first because he claimed that she smelled. Sally became so self-conscious about it that she went to see a doctor to make sure she didn't have a problem. Eventually, Richard didn't even try to hide his infidelities anymore. He carried several cell phones, frequented massage parlors, and hired escorts. Suspicious of him, Sally followed him to a brothel just minutes from where he was working at the time. When he exited the building, he saw Sally standing across the street and he ran. When his sons confronted him about his infidelities, he denied everything, telling them that their mother was crazy and drank too much. When Sally took a job working for the Police Federation, Richard made a new rule. All the money she made was to go to the running of the household. She was to buy the groceries and pay all the bills. Eventually, Sally began to show signs of stress. She slept and ate less and less. At their dinner parties, she smoked more, drank more, and endlessly chatted. Within their circle of friends, the Challens became the couple to avoid. If they were going to be at one of the many dinner parties, other couples would cancel, wanting to avoid them. In late 2009, when the brothel that Richard frequented was raided, it was revealed that it had been staffed with trafficked women. Sally couldn't take anymore, and in November 2009, after 31 years of marriage, she moved out. Sally still loved her husband despite it all, but she was a broken woman. She used the money that she had inherited to buy a small house near their family home. Although it was a horrible life with Richard, she found that she couldn't live without him. She gonna go back, y'all. Life with Richard was all that Sally had ever known. She was so used to abuse that she went back to all she knew, which was abuse. Over the next several months of separation, she started and canceled divorce proceedings 13 times. Eventually, she gave up and begged him to take her Richard wasn't opposed to getting back together, but if they were to reconcile, he had a set of terms that she would need to comply to. A post-nuptial agreement. Sally would need to finalize the divorce and take only a £200,000 settlement, which is approximately $300,000 at the time. It was an insignificant amount compared to what she would normally have been entitled to. She would also need to agree to never speak to strangers when they went out together. He considered it rude and inconsiderate. She would also agree to stop smoking and never interrupt him when he was speaking. The demands were harsh and clearly only a ploy to get her to agree to a much smaller settlement. On a Saturday morning in August 2010, Sally met Richard at the family home only a few blocks from the small home that she had purchased earlier that year. Sally hadn't told any of her family, friends, or even her sons about the possibility that she and Richard may be getting back together. Their plan for the day was to clean the home and prepare to put it on the market. They were expecting to make about £1 million from the sale and had spoken of taking a long trip to Australia together to rekindle their relationship. Despite the talk of reconciliation, Sally hadn't been herself. She laid awake the prior evening in a rage of jealousy. She had managed to get into Richard's email account and noticed that he had been chatting with a woman named Susan Wilsey, who he had met through an online dating service. When Sally met Richard at the family home the next morning, it was all she could think of. Richard said that he wanted breakfast before they started cleaning that morning and suggested that Sally run to the store to get some bacon and eggs. As she left for the store, she had a feeling that Richard was trying to get rid of her. She stopped by her home and the store, then returned to the family home to make breakfast for Richard. As she made breakfast, she had the opportunity to sneak a look at Richard's cell phone, where she listened to a voicemail from Susan Welty asking him to lunch. Her suspicions were correct. Sally made breakfast, placed it in front of Richard, and confronted him about the voicemail. Richard's reply was, quote, "Don't question me, Sally." As he ate, she walked back to her handbag, pulled out a hammer, and struck him in the back of the head. Sally had snapped. She had placed the hammer in her handbag. When she went back to her own home minutes earlier, she beat Richard in the head with the hammer 20 times as he sat at the kitchen table. When he fell to the floor, she stuffed a dish towel in his mouth to ensure he stopped breathing. She then tore down some old curtains from the home, wrapped his body in them, and wrote a note saying, quote, "I love you, Sally," which she laid on his body. Sally then washed the dishes and drove back home. The next morning, after driving her son David to work, Sally drove to the southern coast of England. Beachy Head is known for its 550-foot white chalk cliffs, which plunge down to the rocky coast of the English Channel below. Its massive cliffs make it one of the most popular escort spots in the world, and Sally intended to end her own life. She parked her car, walked to the edge, and called her cousin to tell her what she had done. A escort prevention team pleaded with her for hours and eventually talked her away from the cliff. After Sally was arrested and the forensic team had left the family home, their son David was left to scrub his father's blood splatters from the kitchen table and floor. 10 months later, at Sally Challen's trial, she looked like a completely different person. She was jealousy, and her fingertips were stained yellow from chain smoking. The jury heard her police interview after she was arrested. This is her interview. Quote, "I just want to say that on Saturday when I went over there, I took the hammer over there from my house. I wasn't thinking I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna kill Richard. I was thinking I'm gonna go there and there's a possibility, depending on what panned out. And the hammer's there and I just pick it up and I use it. I don't know why. I feel that if I can't have him, nobody else can. I don't want anyone else to have him if I can't have him." End quote. Quote, "It all became clear that he was playing a game and something flipped inside my head, and that's when I picked up the hammer and hit him over the head repeatedly. I don't know why I did it. I don't know why I had the hammer in my bag. I couldn't stop hitting him. I think it took him by surprise." End quote. Sally pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility, but not guilty to murder. The prosecution, however, saw it differently. The fact that she carried the hammer to the house, right, just before she killed Richard, showed premeditation. The prosecution painted Sally as a woman obsessed with jealousy and suspicion. They showed that she had been hacking his emails, text messages, and voicemails. She had even counted his Viagra pills. When questioned by the prosecution, her standard answer was, quote, "I suppose so," quote, "I suppose I did," end quote, or, quote, "I suppose you're right," end quote. She didn't bother to put up a fight. The jury heard nothing of the verbal and mental abuse she endured during their 31 years of marriage. After 7 days of trial, the jury unanimously found Sally guilty of murder, not manslaughter as she hoped. Before he issued her sentence, Judge Critchlow told her, quote, "You found yourself being eaten up with jealousy at his friendships with other women. You didn't want that, and as you have said, decided that if you could not have him, nobody would. You are somebody who has killed the only man you had known and loved. You will have to live knowing what you have done. In my judgment, the appropriate sentence here is a minimum of 22 years imprisonment," end quote. Sally Challen never spoke to her sons, friends, or family about the murder during her time in prison, but they all knew the way Richard treated her and his controlling abuse. They knew she had been a broken woman and had become even more so in prison. Sally had sat in prison for 8 years when her niece Dalla mentioned to her that she had found an organization called, quote, "Justice for Women," end quote. It was a feminist organization that represented women who had killed violent men as a result of domestic abuse. In 2014, 4 years after her conviction, quote, receive behavior in an intimate or family relationship had become a crime in the United Kingdom. This meant that Richard's years of controlling could be reduced to manslaughter. After much persuasion, Sally wrote a letter to human rights lawyer Harriet Wisrich of Justice for Women. Quote, this is what she said. "Dear Harriet, I wrote as Stella told me that you might be prepared to look at my case and let me know if there were any possible grounds of appeal against my conviction for murder. What I did was very wrong. I've always freely admitted that I did kill my husband Richard, but the full circumstances and history were not put before the jury," end quote. Harriet Wisrich took Sally's case and prepared for appeal. Together, they listed the abuses by Richard, the instances when he hard her in Los Angeles after his friend kissed her, the Christmas cards with the topless girls, the times when he told her, quote, to get ready and wash up for intercourse, the post-nuptial agreement, his excursions to a brothel with the trafficked women, Sally's friends, family, and two sons rallied around her to help with her appeal. Her lawyers argued that Richard's years of control and emotional abuse wore her down and led her to kill. They argued that Sally suffered from an undiagnosed personality disorder at the time of the killing, which was confirmed by psychiatrists while she was in prison. In a landmark case in the United Kingdom, Sally Challen's conviction was overturned and she was set free in April of 2019. Despite all the abuse, Sally still says she loves and misses her husband very much. So this case was a very interesting one. I do feel bad for her, and a part of me hopes she's doing good in life. I don't know, this is one of those tricky cases where this is kind of self-defense, but not really. This is a case of snapped. I will say that. This is a case of snapped. Sally did snap her husband. Unfortunately, she took his life, but I mean, she just couldn't take it anymore. So let me know what you guys think down below. Let me know how you guys. Thank you guys for watching the video. Stay safe, stay blessed, and I'll catch you on my next video.